All right, guys, it's a different night. It's Tuesday night, but it is time for another episode, another weekly episode of Conversations with Commodores. And I know you recognize this gentleman who's over here, Music City Bowl, Mr. Alabama football 2006 or 5? 6?
2006.
Oh, you're getting old, Larry Smith.
Man.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I should say Coach Larry Smith, who's got a game tomorrow night at Jacksonville State. So thank you for making some time for us tonight, Larry. How's the team looking? How are we feeling for tomorrow night?
Man, we're excited. You know, it's been a long but you know, a real productive fall camp. Got a lot of returning guys, and particularly in my receiver room, we're relatively young. So I'm excited to see these new guys get out here, you know, perform well, hopefully tomorrow night.
Excellent. Well, you guys don't take a break. You play at Georgia next week. What in the world? That's awesome.
Yeah, we have a pretty intense schedule. I definitely think this is probably the hardest schedule we've experienced, you know, since the program has been brought back. So really looking forward to it. Just taking it one game at a time.
Well, I know you've been with Coach Clark from way back in the Prattville days, and we're going to get to that in a minute. Now you're with him now on his staff. But I got to ask you, going into Georgia next week, are there any folks associated with the Georgia program who remember Larry Smith, and maybe they got a little grudge they want to take out?
Hopefully not. I hope not, man. Please, I hope not.
Well, guys, I don't know if you remember Larry, but of course you do if you had anything to do with our program in the last 30 years. Take us to the Music City Bowl against Boston College, his first collegiate start. And what do? He brings home a dub, that's for sure. Larry, I want to start right there. Take us to that week. You get to start your first collegiate game under center. Butterflies, or you're ready to go, or are you kind of like a duck on water? All hell's breaking loose underneath the water. You're cool, calm, and collected above it.
Man, I was extremely excited. And I think the week before, the last regular season game we played at Wake Forest, and C. Nick had got hurt, McKenzie had both got hurt, and to start the second half, I went into the game. So I kind of, you know, was able to kind of, you know, get my experience in that second half and just had some momentum going into the bowl game. And I was just really looking forward to it, prepared pretty well. And I guess I didn't, me being a redshirt freshman, I guess I didn't recognize the importance or the intensity, you know, of the magnitude of the situation, you know, being the first bowl game and, you know, since 1982, you know, so I just went into the game as if it was like another game and just prepared like that. And I really didn't have any butterflies. I was just ready to get out there and compete and, you know, try to bring the dub back up the West End.
Well, you know, growing up in Prattville, just north of Montgomery, you got to play deep into most seasons, winning state titles and all that, and then getting to play in different parts of the state. But had you ever played in a game as cold as that before the Music City Bowl against BC?
Maybe one game, I think, like my junior year, we played. It was in the teens. Surprisingly, in Alabama, it got cold. You know, it was just like a right around Thanksgiving time. It was maybe 17 degrees. You know, but that was once every blue moon. You know, as opposed to Nashville. You know, Nashville is really, really cold. So, but that game, the Music City Bowl, it was really cold, particularly in that second half. We came out of halftime, the sun went down. It was freezing cold for sure.
Well, I tell you, those Vandy fans stayed there thick and thin through that game, and to bring home a dub.
Man, that was huge.
I had C. Nick on the show several months ago, and he told us his part of his experiences from that game. And I think it was like a 14-12 game maybe. And it was just back and forth, punting all the time. But you were doing your thing. But I will tell you, Larry, way before we met, I'm from Dothan, South Alabama. Pride of the Northview Cougars, which, by the way, I told you I was going to bring this up. I went and looked up the history of Prattville versus Northview.
Oh, my gosh.
Northview took 5 straight W's against Prattville back in the 70s, 80s. But then Prattville turned it around and took the next 5. So they ended the series at 5-5. So we'll leave it at that right now.
We're at 500.
That's right. That's right. Well, how did you go from Prattville playing for Coach Bill Clark to coming up to Nashville? What was it about Vanderbilt? I know you were getting recruited all over the place, but what sealed the deal for you?
And just Coach Fisher, Charlie Fisher was a recruiting coach that recruited me. built a great relationship with him. And it's funny. So matter of fact, my first visit to Vandy, I was at a football camp in Louisville. Mm-hmm. And we were passing through Nashville on our way back down to Prattville. And Coach Fisher was like, "Hey, just come through, stop by on your way back home." Decided to stop by my mom and my dad and I. And Coach Johnson and Coach Kaiser, they welcomed us with open arms. And it was funny because it was the move-in day it was the first summer session in June, summer school. So the 2006 recruit class, they had just got on campus that day. So it was good to kind of meet some of those incoming guys. But I mean, they just, man, it was, I felt like it was home from the first visit, but it really, really was Coach Charlie Fisher. We built a great relationship. And to this day, Coach Fisher and I are really close. He has a son that lives in Birmingham, and he was back in town back in July. We went and grabbed breakfast. So Coach Fisher and I are really close to this day. He's been like a mentor with me, throughout these past few years of coaching.
That's one of the themes that I'm hearing with all the Commodores. Doesn't matter what decade you played. Typically, the coach who ends up recruiting you end up staying very close with them over the years following. That's so great that you still have a relationship with him. Well, what other schools had you considered, Larry?
Obviously, Louisville, Memphis, and there was a few others. In-state, like Auburn. Mm-hmm. They recruited me heavily. They decided to go in a different direction. It was between me and another guy. Mm-hmm. But it came down to Memphis and Vandy at the right before signing day. But I committed to Vandy early on, a week before my senior season began, and Memphis kind of came in pretty heavy towards the end.
Well, Larry, it's what I'm hearing is you had some prognostication abilities, because had you gone to Auburn, what wouldn't have happened in 2008 College Game Day?
Who knows?
That's right. That's right. You might have been playing for the other guys and still lost that game. No, what I'm talking about, guys, is 2008 College Game Day came to Vanderbilt against Auburn, who was ranked. Take us to that day.
Man, it was the atmosphere, the environment, the buzz on campus, the energy on campus was just, on a different level. We were 4-0 going to that game, off to a really great start. And Auburn came in there, and I mean, just from the jump, we just came out there, executed at a high level. And we end up, starting the season on 5-0, being in the top 25. But just having College Game Day on campus was huge. It was huge. Just the buzz and the energy on campus. I haven't seen it like that ever before.
Yeah, not to knock on the average Vanderbilt student who doesn't play sports, but yes, I'm going to. There were probably kids out there that either A, had no idea what College Game Day was until they got there, and B, the football team probably hadn't seen 90% of those students at the games before. But regardless, they showed out that day. I did remember watching that.
They did, and the fan support definitely played a huge part in that victory that night.
Well, talk to us a little bit about who were some of your guys in your recruiting class.
Okay. Matter of fact, we had a really small recruiting class. We signed 14 guys in the 2007 class. Myself, Chris Marv, who's now the linebackers coach at Florida State. Mm-hmm. We had Jamie Graham, who was a two-sport athlete from Nashville. He went to Whites Creek. Mm-hmm. We had Jermaine Dawson, running back from Tampa, older brother, Kwane, played at Vandy. Right. He was my college roommate, as a matter of fact. Udom Uma, we had a receiver, Udom Uma from Peach County. Mm-hmm. TJ Greenstone, D lineman, Collins Hill, Tim Fugger, defensive end from up in Chicago. We had Kyle Fisher, offensive lineman from South Carolina. Who else did we have? Rob, what is Rob's last name? Ashton from Texas, from Beaumont, Texas. Trying to think of anyone else. And then the late addition we had was Brandon Barden.
A lot of
tight end.
A lot of guys who contributed a lot of minutes and a lot of plays in their careers. But I want to go to Doster for just a minute. You learned the story of his older brother.
Yes.
What kind of I don't know how to put this. Was there pressure on his brother at Vanderbilt following his older brother's legacy? Did you
I
notice
think
that? Did he express that at all?
I think he did, felt a little pressure to try to, fill his brother's shoes, particularly after, the situation that happened with his brother. And with me and Jermaine being roommates, I kind of, had a great relationship with him, and he kind of, opened up to me about that a little bit, so I definitely think it was a little pressure on him trying to, step in his brother's shoes and kind of, fill that void, just and just kind of replace, what his brother, meant to Vandy.
Yeah, Jermaine I've never met him, but he must have some character, because that would be very, very tough to step in, not into necessarily his shoes, but maybe to try to live up to something that maybe not easy to do so. But Larry, let's talk about you were used to big 6A football in Alabama, which is on par with any place in the Southeast, of course. You had an undefeated season. That Prattville team was a juggernaut for several years. You had a whole bunch of guys on your team and the years above and below you who ended up playing in college. But the transition coming out of high school to the SEC is no joke. I mean, it is a transition. Share a little bit about that learning curve for you. Did it, trying to absorb the playbook or learning different positions? What was going on that freshman first fall camp for you?
I was trying to just make sure I was calling the right play in the huddle. But I had older guys like C. Nick and, and McKenzie, and just kind of, followed those guys, and those guys did a great job of kind of mentoring me, for sure. And like you said, from high school to SEC, that's a huge jump. No matter if you're playing 1A ball or, 6A ball, it's a completely different ball game, because at the collegiate level, everyone was the man on their high school team. And just, at Vandy with the schedule that we had, you got to think about the times we were there. I got there in 07. Florida was coming off a national championship. So you had the Tim Tebow Florida team. You had Saban's first year at Alabama was 2007, which is my freshman year. You had the Georgia teams that were really loaded. Kentucky at that time was ranked in the top 5 when they had Andre Wilson at quarterback. Yeah. South Carolina with Steve Spurrier, so they had some teams. So just the East alone in Tennessee had some teams as well, so each week, you had to bring your A game, so it was a different adjustment for sure. But C. Nick and McKenzie did a really great job of trying to guide me along and, just kind of make that transition a little bit smoother for me.
Well, Larry, the physical tools, the physical gifts you've always had, that I don't think was ever an issue for any freshman who is physically gifted and athletic. It's getting the game to slow down in your mind. That's the key, getting your heart rate to lower. At what point, either freshman or any time during your career, did it recognize in your head, man, this game is slowing down a little bit, and now I'm starting to speed up my mental process? How long did that take for you?
I would say that in the bowl game, the Boston College bowl game, I think it kind of slowed down for me, just for the fact of that previous season I redshirted, so I was going against the first team defense. I was on scout team, going against the first team defense week in and week out. So naturally I had to elevate my game, during that time. And then the second year, my redshirt freshman year, and I was just still learning and preparing as if I was a starter just in case my number was called. So I think it kind of slowed down for me, but obviously it slows down with more experience. The more you play, the more experience you get, the more comfortable you get. But I think it started to slow down just once I got those game reps, and the Wake Forest game in 08 allowed me, really helped me out for that bowl game.
It's interesting that you mentioned that. I'm being from Alabama. I always follow particularly the Alabama recruits who play at Vanderbilt. And then more specifically with you playing quarterback, I'm really following your career. So what I look for, regardless of who it is, at quarterback position, I want to see their body language. I want to show me their shoulders. How are they responding? Are they, yelling? Are they doing this and that? And you could see the progression in you on just that very thing. Your body language just spoke confidence in the Boston College game. And I'm like, he's got it. He knows it's the game has slowed down a little bit. Hopefully that heart rate is a little bit more under control. You see that. And I bet you see that in some of your wide receivers when you're standing on the sidelines or at practices and you're critiquing. How do you share that? I want to kind of transition to the coach part now. How do you share that with your younger receivers to, guys, you can do this. That's why we've got you here. You just got to be able to absorb it. How do you can't run the routes for them. You can't do all that, but how do you impress upon them how to get it done?
The main thing we talk about is processing the information. Mm-hmm. So the way I teach, the way we teach as an offense is we go through each concept, so we want guys to know more than just their sole position at receiver. We want guys to know the concept so we can break it down, so we can move guys around. So I'm not always either number one receiver or number two receiver or number three receiver. Guys understand the concept. And I'm big on confidence. So I'm constantly preaching confidence to my guys. Confidence. Process the information. You know what to do, just execute it. And then me having the quarterback background, that also allows me to really help those guys out with understanding coverages, what the quarterback is looking for in his progression, whether I'm the first guy or I'm the last guy in the progression. So now I can know how I need to run my route, whether I can take my time a little bit or I need to speed it up, depends on where I'm at in the progression. I think that's really helped these guys out, particularly, like I said, in my room, we're relatively young, but these guys have done a great job of processing their information and kind of putting themselves in the quarterback's shoes in regards to understanding how they need to run their routes on certain situations.
Getting them to see the big picture.
Yes.
I think that's just so, instead of just having that tunnel vision. But speaking of tunnel vision on Friday mornings, what was your pancake pantry order most Friday?
Man, got the pancakes with the bacon and a side of scrambled eggs with ham.
That sounds like a Prattville.
And I can't forget the French toast as well.
Nice. Nice. Now, have you started a tradition going over in 5 Points South to the House of Pancakes and ordering that same meal there?
Well, we have a tradition, myself and our running backs coach, Henley Brigham. We have a tradition where we will either go to Ted's for breakfast, but I know last year Ted with COVID, they kind of shut down their breakfast. But now we go to Over Easy.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
We'll order Over Easy. Matter of fact, we had it yesterday morning. So the season's back up and running, so we're back to our in-season tradition.
Oh, guys, this smiling face is my guest tonight is Larry Smith. You know him. He's currently the wide receivers coach and has other responsibilities for UAB. He's coaching on the same staff as Bill Clark, who was his high school coach. Talk about that relationship a little bit. I know you're tight with Coach Clark. You've been with him. He's known you since you were a kid. Now you're an adult, and now you're doing this professionally. So talk about that relationship a little bit.
Man, it's crazy. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna start it back from day one. So military background, my parents and my dad was in the Air Force. So we moved to Prattville back in 2000. And I was in 5th grade. We moved my second semester of 5th grade. And my dad found a house in Prattville. So we decided to move there. And the first day we moved there, our neighbor said, "Hey, Prattville football, real big. You guys got to go down there in the fall and check them out." And us coming from North Carolina, which is, typically a basketball state, and obviously I played football as well, but basketball background, I didn't really, I didn't know what I was getting myself into when it came to Prattville football. So fast forward to that fall, my dad was taking classes down here at Troy Montgomery, TSUM. And Prattville and Lanier were playing on a Thursday night. So after my dad finished class, we were like, we'll go to the game. We get to Crampton Bowl, and it's packed, standing room only, on a Thursday night for a high school game. And we're looking at each other like, what in the world is this? So we were like, They really take their football seriously. Because at the time, Prattville was undefeated. Lanier was undefeated. A lot of collegiate athletes were on the field at that time. And then, fast forward to 7th grade, I get into playing ball. And, and Coach Clark and I kind of built that relationship over the years. But his wife was my 8th grade science teacher.
Okay. So she started to recruit you in middle school.
She did. She started to recruit me pretty early. And once I got to 9th grade, Coach Clark and I, continued to build that relationship. And, it just, one thing led to another. I was able, to play star quarterback for him as a 10th grader. And, we were able to get to the state championship game in 2004, my sophomore year. We fell short against Hoover. And then we get back, in 2006, my senior year. And, we finally bring a state championship back to Prattville. And it's just been, been a great relationship since then, but he's been the same guy. I've known him for, nearly 20 years. Same guy, same intense guy, attention to detail guy, been a player's coach, and he's big on family. He's going to take care of his former players for sure. We have 4 of the full-time guys on staff for former players for coach. Whether it was at Prattville or it was at South Alabama. So he's big on that. And, I hit him up when I got done playing at Vanderbilt. He was like, Coach, if there's any opportunity, whenever my playing career is over, I would love to, get in the coaching profession. And he looked out for me, and I was able to get down to South Alabama at the time in 2012. He was the DC season with them. And then he got the head job at Jacksonville State. And then he brings me along as a GA. And then he leaves, goes to UAB after 1 season. I stay at JSU for 2 more seasons coaching quarterbacks. And then when they bring the program back to UAB in 16, he calls me. He was like, hey, you ready to come home? And I've been here with him, since 2016, coaching receivers.
That's awesome. And him bringing back former players is really closely aligned what Coach Lee has done.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Do you keep up with any of the Vanderbilt program? I know you're so busy right now, but do you ever catch up with any of the guys you played with? Or
oh yes. Matter of fact, we a few of the guys, we have a group message. Guys, Casey Hayward, Myron Lewis, Brent Trice, Jeff Jennings, and Justin Green. We have a group message, and we text every single day.
Now, I gotta ask, on Sunday nights, how vicious do you get if Casey gives up a long ball or a big game against somebody? How bad does it get in the text?
We try not to be too hard on him.
Yeah, because you're gonna want tickets. Because some of you guys are going to want tickets when he comes to this part of the country.
Exactly. We try not to be too hard on him. We know now he's a little older. He's in year 10 now.
Easy now. He may see this because this goes public when we're finished. So count your words carefully.
Yeah, we try to go easy on him. Early on in his career when he was younger, we definitely would give him, we'll give him hell a little bit. Yeah. But we know now he's a little bit older, but now Casey's had a really, really good career. He's been blessed. I mean, going to year 10.
I was going to say, how many DBs go past like year 4?
Exactly.
10. That's awesome.
Exactly. So yeah, me and Casey are really close. We stay, like I said, we talk on a regular basis, and it's truly a blessing to see that he's been in the league, for 10 years and just doing, all pro for a few years, and just had a real successful, football career.
Well, guys, I'm talking with Coach Larry Smith, former quarterback, Vanderbilt under Bobby Johnson. Let's see, then Caldwell, and then Coach Franklin. I want to talk about the contrast because 3 completely different personalities. Yeah. And I didn't play for any of them, of course, but I suspect their coaching styles were very different as well. Was the offense for each of those different with the different coaches? Any commonality or anything you could bring from one year to the next?
With Coach Johnson and Coach Caldwell, kind of similar offensive styles because, Coach Johnson, he retired maybe like a week prior to fall camp. You know, so it was kind of short notice in regards to, you know, changing the offensive system. So it was, we know, a lot of familiarity when it, you know, when it came to those systems. Now when Coach Franklin came in 2011, completely different offense. West Coast, you know, NFL, you know, style, a lot of verbiage, a lot of terminology. So, you know, that was a huge transition for us in regards to learning that, you know, but I mean, it was great experience, you know, it was a great experience. Obviously at the quarterback position, that's a little different because you have 3 coordinators in 3 years.
Yeah.
You know, so, but like I said, with Coach Caldwell and Coach Johnson, a lot of similarities because of the staff. It was brand new when Coach Franklin came through.
Remind me, Larry, when did Coach Franklin come in during the calendar year in comparison to when fall camp started? I don't remember that part.
So the fall of 2010, November, our last game of the year was Wake Forest, and that morning they had told Coach Caldwell prior to the game that, you know, his contract would not be, you know, they would not extend his contract, you know. And then Coach Franklin came in December of 2010, and
So
then we get back for summer work. Get back for winter conditioning. He's here.
Did you guys get a spring training or a spring practices with Coach Franklin?
Yes, we did, because he got there in December, and we came back from winter break, January, and they were there ready to roll. And that spring, that was with Coach Franklin's. My last year, his first year there, was by far the most difficult, hardest offseason ever. From a
physical standpoint?
Physical standpoint and mental, you know, standpoint as well. Just for the fact of it was learning a completely new system. Completely new strength staff, completely new staff, you know. We pushed our bodies to the limits, you know. That was the best shape I think I've personally ever been in when Coach Franklin came.
Well, what was just sticking on your last year at Vanderbilt, what was there any memorable games or events or things that really just you reflect back on with your final year?
There was a few. I know when we played UConn, our game 2, you know, at home, and the year before in 2010, we went up to UConn, was up a few touchdowns, you know, on them. And then we end up, you know, throwing a goose egg in the second half. They end up beating us, you know, so we wanted some revenge on those guys. We came out there performing at a high level, ended up winning the game. Got off to, you know, I think we got off to a 3-0 start that year. You know, played pretty well in South Carolina, came up short. But I think one of the most memorable deals was probably the becoming bowl eligible. You know, at Wake Forest. You know, and my senior year, I deal with injuries. You know, and that was also difficult as well because I'd been a starter for, you know, 2.5, 3 years. You know, get hurt. Jordan Rogers comes in, replaces me. You know, becomes a starter. You know, but it was you know. It was just a really good feeling for our senior year to know that we know we're going to a bowl game again, because we were the first senior class to ever, you know, go to 2 bowl games.
That's right.
So that was huge, and it's funny because we were one of the smallest classes that Vandy signed. We only signed 14 guys. Yeah. But we were a real close-knit class, and we told each other on our official visits in January of 2007, we said, hey, we're going to make history here. We're going to be, you know, we're going to get to these bowl games. And we sure did, you know, just for the fact of us making the 2 bowl games. Like I said, first class ever in Vandy football history to do that. That was huge.
That was huge. That was huge. You made a lot of players proud and a lot of players jealous too. To do that. And guys, we've just got a few more minutes with Larry Smith. He's got meetings to go to. Gosh, they got a game tomorrow night. We're very fortunate to have him for a few minutes tonight. Larry, all athletes go through dealing with injuries at some point or another. All athletes also, because Father Time is undefeated, have to face the reality that it's time to put up the cleats and put up the helmet. And I know it's not a pleasant time for any athlete, but I want you to take us there a little bit because you did get hurt and you're dealing with injuries and like you said, Jordan Rogers taking over. But there's also life lessons in there for all athletes. And you being a coach now, hopefully enough time has passed. It's not as much of a sting for you, but share what you learned from that. And what do you tell your current athletes when they're facing adversity?
What I tell my guys now, we have a saying that I use in my room: dominate adversity. You know, it's going to happen one way or another. It's going to happen, but you have to dominate the adversity. You know, you have to handle it the right way. Control what you can control. That's your energy. That's your effort. That's your body language. That's your attitude. You know, but you have to dominate adversity. You know, and you know, like you said, I dealt with some injuries. So when I'm talking to my guys, I'm talking from experience.
Mm-hmm.
You know, from my sophomore year with the hamstring injury I had to my senior year with the shoulder, the concussion, the high ankle. You know, it teaches me how to handle adversity. And I think hindsight, looking at it now, when I did get hurt my senior year, I think that was a way of kind of leading me into my calling now in becoming a coach. You know, because I was on the sidelines, kind of helping Jordan out, or just kind of seeing myself, be in that coaching role a little bit. Because I mean, when I'm playing, I'm thinking, everyone's thinking, I'm going to the league.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but once I got hurt, and I was like, man, if football doesn't work out, I'm not a sit behind the desk, suit, tie type of guy. I need to be around the game and, one way or another. And, the best way to do that was, just, get into coaching and, be able to have a positive impact on young men's lives.
Well, and I know you have been for many years now, but isn't it amazing how one chapter can close, but the next chapter can present itself so quickly if you allow it. A lot of athletes shut down mentally, their pride gets in the way, or whatever else just becomes too much of a hurdle for them. So I applaud you to be able to step into that role so quickly. I got to ask you, was Jordan's hair as tall as it was then as it is now? Did he wear it that high?
No, he did not. He had a relatively low haircut when we were in college.
Speaking of good haircuts, Chris Griffin says good luck and tell you hello.
Man, tell Griff I said what's up.
I tell you, Griff is killing it with the Vanderbilt Black and Gold Club. He's doing a fantastic job. And I'm going to pause. We're going to get you out of here in 2 minutes, Larry. Chris put in our Facebook group and the other Facebook group that's for the Black and Gold Club information about the pregame tailgating party or tailgating event that the Black and Gold Club sponsors. So you guys make sure you register if you want to attend it for this first home game against ETSU. Alfonso Harvey says, "What's up, my guy?"
Fonzo.
Is there a more positive fella who you know than Mr. Harvey?
Man, high energy guy, always smiling every time I see him. Every time I see him. That's my guy.
He's always got some good stuff on social media to share. I enjoy reading what you got, Alfonso. All right, Larry, we're going to get you out of here in about 2 minutes. I always ask, you got to tell us, did you have any favorite classes or professors who you really enjoyed during your time?
Favorite professor, Lori Woods.
Okay.
Lori Woods.
What did Lori Woods teach?
She was a sociology teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was great. She was real helpful, with outside of class as well. She's almost like a coach in regards to, it's bigger than football. Mm-hmm. Lori and I stay in contact to this day. And when it's funny, when we won the national championship in baseball 2 years ago, in 19, she mailed me a championship T-shirt.
Awesome. You're talking about mentors again.
Yes.
Coach Clark, your coach out of Prattville, your position coach at Vanderbilt, and now her. All right, where did you hang out on or off campus when you weren't at Pancake Pantry?
I was on campus, obviously ran where the food was located. And on the weekends, student life would have some parties that we would go to. And then, frat row, whenever we had some free time, we'll go to frat row and just kind of hang out. And because several of our teammates were in fraternities, so we'll go out there and, hang out with them. If I was downtown, anywhere on Broadway.
Yeah, your experience is so different than those old guys, because downtown Nashville was not downtown Nashville. It was seedy, it was gross, it was crime filled. There was nothing like it is today or even during your time. But anyway, that's just the old head in me talking. Larry, I want to thank you for spending some time. I've been looking forward to our discussion.
I appreciate you having me.
But you've been making Prattville and Vanderbilt proud for many, many years. And I know that you're doing some great things at UAB. So thank you, bud, for sharing your time and a little bit of your story with us tonight.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
That's right.
Go Doors.
Go Doors. Anchor down. Good luck this weekend, Larry. And guys, please show up to the home games. Come on. I'm going to be up there Saturday at the ETSU game. I hope to see many of you at the pregame tailgate that the Black and Gold Club's putting on, and hopefully future games as well. And Larry, we're going to come see you at that new stadium downtown. Are y'all practicing there, or are you practicing just on campus?
We've had 2 practices at the new stadium.
Is it nice?
It's really nice. Really nice. And man, we're so fired up for October 2nd. That's our first home game. October 2nd against Liberty. So it's gonna be a real good one.
Well, when things calm down, I'm gonna bug you for a little tour sometime inside the stadium. I see it from the outside.
Come on.
All right, guys, y'all be well, be safe. We'll catch you next week. Anchor down.
Anchor down.